rely on and lean on, whether it's in my faith journey with the Lord and anything that is more of the emotional side of life. And so we're this perfect trio of yin and yangs. And my mom jokes with me. She says, if I want to be uplifted, if I want to be built up and I want to be encouraged, I'm going to go talk to Dani. If I want it kind of in the middle, I'll go talk to Taylor, because she is that perfect balance of rationale and also like encouraging, and like we'll talk to you with a good sentiment. And then Ryan, our brother, is very much the one who's going to be a realist, and he's going to tell you like it is. So we all really balance each other out really well. And I would not be where I am without them, because even during, I'm sure as we'll get into, my playing days, when I played women's professional football, they were always there for me. And that's kind of just how our family is. We were always there for each other, and we really wanted to uplift and support each other. And, we were really all we had. So it was a really we had a good childhood, but it was, everybody endures their adversity, right? So having them and having that rock of the two of them, my siblings, was really, really important.
You moved to Australia for 3 years when you were 8 years old. What were the circumstances there?
So my dad actually got a job promotion. He worked for Caterpillar at the time, and we were actually considering moving to Colorado, to Denver, and we looked at houses to go move in that direction for a job promotion. And then I vividly remember him coming home one day from work and saying, "Hey guys, so I know that we've already picked out a house in Denver, but Caterpillar offered me a job in Australia. What do you guys think of that?" And I think all of us, we already had been mentally prepared to move. So like uprooting and leaving your hometown, I think was already accepted and not really much of a question. And our whole family was very much like, yeah, let's do this. What a cool adventure. How many people get the opportunity to say that they lived in multiple continents, and especially Australia of all places. So that was one of the most incredible experiences that I tell everybody, if they get an opportunity to just check something off their bucket list, or if they really want to step out of their comfort zone, you got to go to Australia, because it is incredible. It's like this untouched God's piece of paradise between, the Gold Coast, and we had a chance to go to the Great Barrier Reef a lot. We lived down in Melbourne, which is kind of the southernmost tip of Australia, but we did so much traveling, and it's kind of crazy to look back on it now and think that we traveled more around Australia than we did when I was growing up in Peoria, Illinois, inside the United States. And so our family really took advantage of that. We ended up taking an around the world trip before we ended up moving back to Texas. So I've seen every continent but one, and I haven't seen Antarctica. So that's on my bucket list. I know most people might think I'm crazy because of that, but just to knock it out, I think would be really cool. And I highly recommend going to Australia if anybody gets a chance or is listening to this and really wants to do something different. Make sure you set yourself aside like a whole week or 2 weeks, because that 24-hour flight can definitely kick you in the behind. But it is well worth it, and between all of the different things that you can do there, all of the natural wonders, it is just a phenomenal creation on this earth.
So 3 years there, and then you returned to the United States. Is that just a transfer for 3 years and circumstances say, hey, let's move back to the United States, to Texas, or what was that?
Yeah, pretty much. My dad got another job opportunity in the DFW Metroplex, and so we moved back into the United States, back into Texas in 2000, and right as the millennium hit. So anybody who's listening to this who was alive, in 2000, we were actually in a hotel room ringing in that new year when everybody thought that the entire world was going to collapse. So we held our breath, and we celebrated ringing in 2000 with a bunch of complete strangers in a hotel lobby. And it was a blast and something that I will remember for the rest of my life. And now we are consider ourselves Texans because we lived there for so long. And I probably the fewest amount of years out of my entire family. My brother and sister were there obviously a little bit longer than me, and my mom was there a little longer than me as well before moving to Stillwater, Oklahoma. And growing up in Texas was phenomenal. It was such a blessing because I really was able to kind of spread my wings. I learned a lot about myself. My parents got divorced when maybe a year or 2 years after we got there. So we learned a lot about what the dynamics of living with a single mom and, you know, growing up with those kind of struggles. My mom had, you know, 3 jobs at one point. And so our community and our friends that we created along the way, you know, they say that it takes a community to raise kids. And that really was the case. We found some amazing friends, and they really helped us and developed us into the people that we are today. I think we turned out pretty good. Some other people may beg to differ, but it was something that changed our lives forever and really defined us. So from school to our hobbies outside of it. Again, my mom was really supportive about making sure that she coached all of our t-ball teams or our sporting events outside of school and allowed us to get involved in whatever we wanted in school. And really, we all really supported each other and were able to make that happen. So Texas was a phenomenal experience. I wouldn't change it for the world. And yeah, my high school journey was pretty wild as well. Not from like a crazy standpoint,
right,
but just because it also helped me find, you know, my next step in life. And from thinking that I was going to play, you know, softball in college and getting recruited to play softball in college to deciding all of a sudden my senior year that, oh, hey, I found this women's professional football team and I want to try something new, that I was able to take advantage of those opportunities and do something completely different. And so some people may say that I was a crazy person for pursuing that avenue right out of high school and playing professional football, but I look back on it and I realized that it was one of the most incredible moments of my life because it opened so many doors and got me to where I am today.
Now, so you were on track to be a scholarship softball player, and
yeah,
instead you took time away to be a professional football player, or did you, I know you ended up going to Oklahoma State, were you able to do those concurrently, or how did it work?
No, so I ended up making the decision to stay closer to home. I actually went to a school called Tarrant County Community College for 2 years while I was in Dallas so that I could go to school and play women's professional football at the same time while getting my basics out of the way. It ended up being great because from a financial standpoint, it was much more affordable. And, you know, basically having a job where I didn't get paid much, but, you know, got paid basically like a part-time job. So you were able to still do that while also studying. And then, you know, maybe doing some other jobs outside of that. And I went to JUCO thinking that I was going to get a degree in zoology or marine biology. And so all of my basics were primarily science courses. And one day, it was the second year of my time at college there, second year while I was playing women's professional football, and a reporter came out to do a story on us, and he was so happy and just loved what he was doing, and his photographer was great, and they were so fun to be around. And when they got done, our owner asked me to come over and do the interview with them. And when we got done, I said, man, you really look like you enjoy what you do. He said, oh, I wouldn't trade this profession for the world. I come into work every day. I never know what I'm going to do, but I always love being able to tell stories like this one and to be able to promote even like female athletes and athletes that don't usually get that kind of spotlight. And I thought, man, that would be something that I would love to do. I would love to be able to, A, promote women's sports, and B, to tell the stories that a lot of people don't get a chance to see or hear because they're not necessarily prominent figures within the community. So I ended up deciding that I would play football for another 2 years while going to Oklahoma State, primarily because I wanted to be part of the first women's international team, first Team USA to go play internationally. And you had to be on an active roster in order to do that. And so I went to Oklahoma State for its sports media program, which it had just started up at the time, and decided that I was going to make that drive to and from Stillwater to Dallas every weekend just so that I could make this women's national team. And I ended up making it, and we ended up winning the gold medal over in Sweden. We ended up beating Team Canada like 67-0, and it was one of the coolest experiences, and I'm so glad that I did it. The weeks were long, and anybody knows that, college is a grind, but to do that on top of making that trip back home every single weekend was a lot. But I look back on it, and I do not regret it. Again, it opened so many doors, and it really allowed me to break some barriers. I think there's been a women's team that has gone and competed overseas, a Team USA, every 4 years since then, and that was 2010. So we kind of set the trend and have been able to keep it going ever since, and I'm kind of hoping that someday, women's professional football does the same.
You tell the story of what it's like to be a professional women's football player. I mean, there's not much glamour there. It's not like there's thousands of people in the stands. And, I, a couple of years ago, did a podcast about the Kansas City team here. And, it's a labor of love for people who want to play football, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a grind. You have to be incredibly committed. I joke with people that you basically have to have 2 full-time jobs in order to make it something that's semi-lucrative or that you can be successful and invest your entire time into. But we had a really, really good ownership group. Her name was Dawn Burnt, and she and a few others really invested into the Dallas team. And right now, they've gone through a couple different ownership changes since I've been there. They're now called the Dallas Elite Spartan, and they're in a different league. But when I was playing, most of the time it was regional games, but far enough that you'd have to take a bus. And so a lot of times we'd sleep overnight on the bus, and then we'd get up and we'd go play. And luckily we were talented enough that it didn't really make that much of a difference. But it is a grind on your body. It's a grind on your mind. And the thing about it is that you really, really, really do have to love it, because there's no bougie about it. It is all tough all the time. And so our coaches were incredible. They were some of the best. They were either former pro football players, high school coaches, former semi-pro coaches. And so we were put in positions to succeed. And so I think that's what made Dallas stand out and what eventually helped us win a Super Bowl in 2008. And that was something that really, really resonated with me, was that you saw so many women coming together who had to have other jobs. We had teachers, we had undercover cops, we had myself, we had students, we had people who, veterinarians, just people who had other jobs who really, really wanted to make a difference in sports and wanted to play women's professional football. And so I look back on that and I think, man, someday I hope that I can give back to that sport the way that it gave to me and the way that ownership group invested in me and encouraged me to be a women's professional athlete. And so I couldn't have done it without them. And again, that organization was so well run, is continuing to be well run. They've won a bunch of championships since I've been there. And so it's really, really cool to see. And yeah, it's a labor of love without question.
So you come to the end of your college years, and actually you did study veterinary science at Oklahoma State too. And I assume that when it's time to get out in the world, it's a good time also to maybe say goodbye to that chapter of football. Was there ever a thought to use the veterinary degree, or had you hooked into becoming a reporter whole hog by then?
Yeah, no, I had hooked into being a reporter. I actually ended up got my first job as a reporter covering high school sports in Dodge City, Kansas, of all places. And I joke with people that I got two of the best things in my life. from going out there, I got my first job